Hi guys! We're going to now learn about how you can create a member in a source physical file. Now remember, the source physical file we created in the previous tutorial was srcpf-dbsu1. Here's the name of that source physical file, srcpf-dbsu1. Now, when you create a member, you need a utility, as I taught you a couple tutorials ago, called SEU, Source Entry Utility. SEU is a utility. In order to start a utility, you need a command, start, and the name of the utility. Start is shortened as str. So if I issue this command, str, followed by SEU, this will going to help me start a utility. However, if I press enter on source entry utility, it will going to give me my last source member that I created. I want to create a new member and not look at my last member. So therefore, I will going to issue an F4, which is for the prompt. Now, over here, it is asking me what is the name of your source file, which is the file that I created, srcpf-dbsu1. This is the source physical file database summer1 that I created. Now, the name of the library. I can say I want to use my current library, so I will going to use a system value of asterisk curlib. So after filling out these two sets of information, now the next set of information is, it is asking me, what would you like to call your member? So the member needs to have a name. I would like to call my member Plant. What is the type of the member? Now, in this tutorial, we will going to create physical file member. In the coming tutorials, we're going to create logical file members. So for physical file member, the source type is PF. For the logical members, it is LF. Now, do not get confused between the source type and a file extension. In IBM world, we have a source member, which is the name of the member, and a source type, which pretty much defines what kind of member it is. Pretty much like what kind of document it is. It's a text file or rich text format or stuff like that. But in the IBM world, as we have learned in our classroom environment, we have something called an object type. And this pretty much defines what kind of object it is. Now, members are not objects. Members are simple source codes that are in the source files. These are compiled to create the source member objects. So once those objects are created, then they are defined by the types. What is the type of this kind of an object? This is more or less like a file object. If it's an RPG or a Java program, it's going to be a program object. So here we're dealing with source types to tell what kind of file it will going to be. So we'll say the kind of file it will going to be will be PF. Now, when you give the source type, you do not need to give the asterisk as it is not a system value. Rather, we use one of the existing types. If you are unsure about what type to use, you can always press F4. It will going to give you the list of the types that are currently available that you can use. And here you can see the whole list of them. Okay, now let me press F12 to cancel this so that I can go back to the previous screen, and now pressing enter will going to help me create this source physical file called plant. So as soon as I press enter, I am now in the source entry utility. In the source entry utility, I can now start to create my document. Now here in the source file, as you remember from the slides that I showed you earlier, we need to have a record format, and then we can list our fields. And each field we're going to have a field name and a field description. So the very first thing that you must always create in a physical file or a logical file is your record format. In order to create a record format, you need to give it a name. One of the things that you have to be careful in this environment is to make sure that your caps lock is on. That's the first thing to keep in mind. Second of all, every character is a placeholder designated to do a certain job. So it is not like a notepad document where you can start typing. So you have to make sure everything goes respectively in its right place. So in order for you to make that happen, we take help from a prompt, which is F4. We're going to bring a prompt down below over here. So when you type things in these blanks, they go in respective columns automatically. So since the first thing I got to do is I got to create a record format, so I'm going to put under name type R, and under name I'm going to put the name of my record, which is REC plant. Once I am done naming my record format, rest of the fields or rest of the items are designated for fields, not for the record format. So I press enter. As soon as I press enter, you can see that there is an entry on the very first line that says this is the name of my record format. Now to insert a new line, I cannot simply go to the end of the line and press enter. Rather, I need to go in this column area. In the very first placeholder, I press the letter I followed by the number 1. So I1 means I am interested in inserting one line. So as I press enter, I get a new line. And then I can press F4 and start entering the field names and the data types. Now let me tell you what are the available data types to you in this environment. So I went to the IBM website, and here I have the list of all the IBM supplied data types for this environment. Now here in this environment, you do not spell out the whole data type. Rather, you put in these letters which represent what is the data type for which field. So if I want to deal with numbers with decimal places, I have a choice of backed or zoned. I can use floating points or binary. For hexadecimal, I use H. For characters, I use A, which also is for string because I can give the size of the character field. For date, time, and timestamp, it's fixed size. So you only need to mention the data type. You do not need to specify the length. But for all others, you need to specify the length. So going back to this environment, as you can see over here, that a field needs to have a name, a length, a data type, and a decimal position. So let's say the very first field, I've tabbed over, I have my caps lock on, I want my first field to be called plant ID. Now you have to remember that all object names, including the field names and record format names, they're limited by the size of 10 characters. So we have to have a length. Length must be right aligned in this environment. So if I want my ID to be like 5 characters long, I'll say 5. And if it's a character, I'm going to push A. If I'm done, I press enter, and now that gets added to the respective columns. I go back, insert a new line. Now I will going to press F4 again, and that will going to give me again my prompt to put in my field. So the next field will going to be plant name. Again, length and data type. Let me increase it. So if I want to increase it, I can always go back and I can use my mouse to place my insertion point on that spot, and I can override, and I can press enter to finalize the change. Okay, so again, as you notice that I was in the wrong place when I pressed enter, I had to move away from there to finalize the change, and then I can press enter. Now I'm going to add another field here. We're going to add a numeric field. We're going to call this one price. And in order for you to have a numeric field, let's say the highest value that I can sell a plant for is $30 and X amounts of cents. So for $30 and X amounts of cents, so the total number of digits I need is 4. And my data type can be packed or zoned, as I showed you here earlier. That for packed we use P, for zone we use S. So for packed I'll use P, and for the decimal position, again I have to go right and then 2. So these 2 decimal places are actually coming out of the length of 4. So as I press enter, now that creates my record format, that creates my fields, and now if I'm done with the data structure of this particular file, I can simply press F3 to come out of it. It will ask me, would you like to save changes? I'll say yeah, press enter, and now I am in this environment where I can go and compile my source code, and then once it gets compiled, I can then see how I can use the utilities to add data to it. So in this tutorial, what we have learned is how you can create a member, and you can create the source of the member in the SEU utility. Hope you would have enjoyed this tutorial. Catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching.